Hi everyone, I'm the director for our New Zealand registered not-for-profit called Common Knowledge, and we've been privileged since the mid-1990s to hold all of the Birthing Better skills, used to be called the Pink Kit, that I and hundreds of fathers and mothers developed in the early 1970s in the United States. And this is a new series. It's called Re-envisioning Childbirth. It's really about time we need a new childbirth trend. When I gave birth in 1970, the very first childbirth preparation classes were taught, and they were Lamaze and Bradley, entirely skills-based. Fathers could come in with us, and they took pride in being able to help us breathe and relax. By the 1980s, when I gave birth last, pretty much all of those classes had shifted to childbirth education. And you learned the pros and cons of medical assessments, monitoring procedures, made a birth plan because you know what kind of birth you wanted, and then expected your care providers to give you that birth. Fathers were demoted from being coaches to merely supporting your choices. So how has that impacted childbirth? Well, first of all, when I gave birth, multiple millions in a generation, we used some level of skills. They weren't the best. They didn't adapt or adjust or weren't sustainable for many of us. They were targeted to low-risk women, having a natural birth, pain-free labor with no medical care. Many of us were high risk, or many of us had lots of medical assessments, monitoring, and procedures because those were the standards of care, guidelines of practice, or evidence-based practice of the day. By the 80s, the labor and delivery nurses and midwives around the world and doctors stopped seeing skilled women. Instead, they saw birth plans, and they could never figure out what a woman really wanted, make a list of 100 things, flip a coin. If a woman said, I want just one thing, I want to labor and have a vaginal birth, and what happens if she doesn't even have that? So birth plans are always iffy. Some women have choices, some lack, and many choices change, and many women don't really actually know what they want. When you ask women around the world, which I have done for 50 years, what do you want in birth? First thing, healthy me and a healthy baby. That's what everybody wants. And the next is a positive birth experience. Can I get one? And throughout time, we know women suffered in childbirth. That didn't mean they had a risk, just mean they didn't have skills to cope. There really was no universal way to prepare for birth or to deal with it. When I gave birth in 1970, 95% of us labored, whether we suffered or whether we loved it, whether we had a tragedy or a good outcome. Risks were considered normal, natural, and physiological, and tragedies were sad but accepted because there was very little that could be done. That's not true today. So we've been in a birth plan, choice-based childbirth trend since the 80s. How's it working? Not well. So we need to change it. We need to re-envisioning childbirth. And our trust, because of what mothers and fathers said in the early 70s, and we tried in the 70s and the 80s to say to birth advocates, you need to carry skills forward along with choices, because if skills don't unfold, if choices don't unfold, people will have skills. Because choices are what you want or what you don't want or what you hope for. Skills are what you use and what you do when you're doing the activity. Those are very, very different things. Education may be both, but application is different. So I'm now doing a re-envisioning childbirth. And that concept, that idea that we should be skilled to birth our babies needs to be easily explained. I can explain it easily because I've been carrying this for 50 years. You have to explain it easily. So it's written in the description. It's a concept. It's one sentence. Variations of the sentence, but one sentence. When you're pregnant, it's normal and natural to self-learn birth and birth coaching skills and use those skills when you do the activity of birthing your baby. You can say it differently. You can say it's normal and natural when pregnant to learn some birth and birth coaching skills and use those skills when you do the activity of birthing your baby, no matter where you birth, no matter who's present, no matter your circumstances or beliefs or your choices, lack of choices, change of choices, or what happens to or around you. And why is that? Why is this concept important? because 100% of pregnant women will give birth one way or another. And we thrive as humans on being skilled. And so we should just learn skills. This is going to be our task. This is our stage in life. We become a parent as soon as we get pregnant. And if we learn skills and do the activity of birthing our baby, then we move into parenting when our baby's out of our body, feeling more confident and capable. We don't have to be perfect. We just have to use some skills. We're hungry. It's physiological, normal, and natural. Prefer to cook. Some of us don't cook, right? But somebody cooks, but nobody can do the birth for us. So today we're going to talk about breathing. The first breathing was Lamaze and Bradley. Bradley was in the nose and out the mouth, which sounded good, assuming that when women breathed in the nose and out the mouth, that they could relax when they felt a lot of pain. Or, now, just have lots of pain for 90 seconds or a minute. How are you going to cope using that? Sounds good until you apply it. So what would happen with women is they would start to sound like this. Ah, 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 ah. And the guys would go, she's breathing in her nose and out her mouth. Well done. And the women were thinking, why isn't he helping me? Because it is hard when you feel pain to breathe in a relaxed manner. It takes our mind to choose to cope and manage and work through and deal with and handle and stay on top of and feel in control. And it gets compounded by women seeing contractions as either not painful, kind of painful, sort of painful, painful, very painful, whereas men from the outside see a contraction as having 5 phases. Something starts, begins to get more intense, it either peaks or a plateau, begins to go away, and it goes away. So the fact is, even with an in nose and out the mouth breathing, if people have been said there are 5 phases, so you can use that, then a woman might do this. As it starts and as it gets more intense, maybe at the peak she goes, oh, but as it comes down, as it goes away, now doesn't that make more sense? That's Bradley in the nose out the mouth. That's one way that humans breathe. We all breathe in the nose out the mouth. Lamaze was in and out the mouth. We all can do that. So people who learned Lamaze did this. That is not sustainable. Women would hyperventilate, and they'd breathe into a paper bag because they'd get dizzy and nauseous. So neither of these skills were great, but they were breathing skills. It took many, many years for hypnobirthing, calm birth, birthing within to be developed. The 90s and 2000s. When birthing better developed, in the early 70s, we had those 2 methods. That's all we had. And we had to understand why they didn't work for so many of us. Well, the mouth-mouth breathing just didn't work. That was dysfunctional. So cut that out. But that's a way that humans breathe, in and out the mouth. That's actually one of 4 ways that humans breathe. The other way that we now know is in the nose and out the mouth. And you've been able to experience that it has variations. And it, in fact, has more variations. If we breathe in the nose and out the mouth, we can control it, which many women do to cope with natural occurring pain. We can relax. We can do that quietly or with a sound. We can do in the nose and out the mouth having sex. When we're exercising. When we're moaning. When we're screaming. But there are two other ways. One is in the nose and out the nose. Or in the mouth and out the nose. That's when you jump into really icy cold water or get frightened or something happens unexpectedly. So how do we then focus on breathing in birth? Well, you modify it, you adjust it, you adapt it, and you make it sustainable for what you're feeling internally and what you're experiencing externally. So at the beginning part, if you labor, you may be nose breathing. Your contractions aren't painful. You just might be going about your business. You don't even think about your breathing. Then as the contractions get more painful, if you don't know about these 5 phases, that becomes harder because you get tense as soon as that pain starts and it peaks, so you stay tense. And then you stay tense afterwards because you know another one's coming. But if you know about those 5 phases, then you can modify that breathing. So you might start off with in the nose and out the nose. That may get more deep. You may change to in the nose, out the mouth. That may get more deep. The peak. Oh, oh, oh. You see, in and out the mouth there. Then it goes away. Begins to go away. Then you want to get rid of the energy. And Lamaze did that well, cleansing breath. Then you might go back to nose. So the modification of Lamaze was just going, you can't breathe in and out your mouth all the time. Bradley, we began to be able to modify it, but we had to do it from a birthing better viewpoint, from understanding these 5 ways we breathe. In the nose, out the nose, in the nose, out the mouth, with all these variations. In the mouth, out the nose, and in and out the mouth. So if you're having something done to you and it's unpleasant, you might do this. But then if you know, you go back to doing this. Rather than Now, as a partner, you see this. If she's doing this, you don't know what she's thinking. She might be thinking, hey, you, never getting near me again, never doing this again. You don't know what she's thinking. What you know is she's doing her best to cope. But if she starts doing this, you can see it. You can hear it. So you model the breathing. She'll follow you. She does not want to get out of control. So in birthing, better fathers developed these skills. It was always from being the birth coach, seeing and hearing. And when asked, how do you stop a woman when she's out of control? Their comment was simple. Don't let her get that way. As soon as you see and hear, go in and model good breathing. She'll follow you and keep doing it. She may then say, it's okay, I've got it. And if not, you just keep doing it. Why? Because you're a father or other. You're going to be in this baby's life. This is dramatic. Wouldn't you be helping for any other dramatic thing? How about it just helping when it's not dramatic? Birth is always dramatic. And breathing is always important. So let's talk about labors that end up with unplanned cesareans. You're not going to stop breathing. So just keep using your skills while you're being prepped. That's your transition. While you're having surgery. It may not have been the birth you wanted, or you may be delighted. It's still your baby's birth. You don't stop parenting when things don't go your way. So don't stop using skills when you're birthing your baby. What about a planned cesarean that you may be delighted about or not want? Love, it's preparing your body for birth, learning skills. Your baby is with you. By learning skills, you are a more skilled parent. It's not like you're not a parent and then suddenly you're a parent. No wonder everybody's feeling so much shame, blame, guilt, disappointment, anger, and birth trauma, which makes it harder to parent. Because we do not have a perception that it's important to be skilled to birth our babies. We lost that perception in the US, and some countries never had it back in the 70s, and we lost it in the 80s by intent. The message was cows and cats aren't taught to birth, women don't need to. What an insult. No, it's an infrequent activity that is dramatic. You can't replay it. It's a one-off. And it's life transforming. If it's life transforming, we should be elevating it to a very high level of skills. And that's what Birthing Better families did. We don't care whether you use Birthing Better skills or not. Use any skills you want. Use them. So enjoy learning them when you're pregnant, because you're pregnant and your hormones are preparing you to labor and have a vaginal birth, whether you have one or not. But when you get in the car or get in the bus or get taken to the hospital, that's your labor. Use breathing to calm and relax yourself. You'll get scared, you'll get anxious, you'll get thrilled, you'll get excited. You have to do this activity. Breathe better, calm better. And when you're being prepped, it may not be pleasant. Use your breathing to cope and manage. You may be numbed during the surgery. As long as you're awake, use your skills. This is your baby's birth. Be a skilled parent to birth your baby. There is no reason not to use good skills. Are you going to be perfect? We don't have to be perfect. We're not perfect parents. We just need to be skilled to some level. So what's the concept again? To re-envision childbirth? Learn some skills when you're pregnant and then use them to work through the activity of birthing your baby. It's common sense, but we've been told it makes no sense, and that's nonsense, and we have to stop it. We now have to go forward, because what else is there to do? We can all follow the doctor's orders, or love our midwives, or choose to have a home birth, or wish we weren't having the birth we had. We have to do the activity of birthing our baby. When birth unfolds, it is what it is. That's what you do, the activity. That's the activity, right? You get in a car to drive, and there's a snowstorm, an ice storm, a kid runs across the street. There's a traffic jam. You have to do the activity of driving a car. You get hungry. You have to do the activity of putting safe foods in your mouth. Your kids certainly have to. Spend a lot of time taking unsafe things out. And if you don't do your own cooking, that's your choice. Same way, you can choose to have a cesarean. That's fine. You still have to eat the food. And you still have to figure out how to chew your food so you don't choke on it, or when to stop when you feel full. We don't think of those as skills. We're skilled as humans. We thrive on being humans. You might think, well, I'm not taking good examples of skills. Think about everything you do in life, you're skilled. And if you've had a birth, think about how skilled you were for that. We need to be skilled. Breathing is the first way. Experiment with the 4 ways we breathe, and just in life. In the nose, out the nose. What are your variations? How do you do that in life? In your nose, out your mouth. Catch yourself and say, ooh, that's one of the variations. In your mouth, out your nose. In and out your mouth. And then if you're pregnant, imagine birth in your mind. Imagine yourself using those skills, those breathing skills, and work with your partner. Make it up. Imagine it, because you can't practice beforehand, but it's going to unfold. So the more you make it up and try doing these things in your mind, you're doing it just like an athlete does. Because what is birth? It's your Olympic event. It's your climbing Mount Everest without being able to practice beforehand. But you can, in your mind practice, you can apply these breathing skills as you envision your birth going forward. And so can your partner. Envision doing that and tell your partner, now I want you to breathe with me. Do you get it? Hope you do. And you're going to remember the concept? When you're pregnant, learn some skills and then use your skills. You'll never regret it, and you'll always be glad you did.